Pierce. The next speaker today is Eamon Kearns from County Down. His two sons were murdered by a British-controlled death squad in 1993.
Right.
Just like to say thanks to the people who organised this here for the opportunity to say a few words. The family feel because our children were so innocent, we feel that to welcome the Queen is both bad time and it's the wrong time. After all, she is the Commander-in-Chief of the very forces that murdered our children and was paid out of the public purse. The visit actually just gives her a veneer of respect, and it's masking the murders of all you people here, your loved ones. As you know, about a third of the people that lost their lives in the war here were actually killed by the British troops from whatever regiment they belonged to. Some of them were native. Anyway, the present Queen is the biggest landowner in the British Isles, and she would have a large influence on the House of Lords that blocks everything our own government would even attempt to do to give us some justice through the courts. It's the House of Lords that blocks everything. Sorry.
Don't be sorry. Don't be sorry.
Jared and Rory were 22, Jared was 22, and Rory was 18 when they were murdered. Me and the wife were out at our Irish class in Lurgan, 3 mile away. It's a very cruel, one of the most cruelest ways to kill anybody is to actually do it in their home. There's not a message of terrorism there, and it makes it very difficult to see the reason why Martin McGuinness, who I've walked behind this last 20 or 30 years, he can go behind doors and shake the hand dripping with the blood of my children. Another thing I'd like to express here today, a wee bit, very often don't know what I'm talking about, and probably the same here, is the word dignity. I say the F for the word dignity. Too often we have took that road of dignity, and where did it get us? I think it's time that people like yourselves here started talking a bit more frank, and which I'm picking up here today. At long last, people are starting to show a wee bit of anger. And I really hope that it develops into good, dignified hatred for the Queen. You know, one of the reasons it came into my head the other day why I should come down here was this day, 115 years ago, the one and only James Connolly led a great march in the city of Dublin and was beat after streets. Okay, right. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, my boy.
I think we'd all like to thank Eamon very much for what he had to say there. Our next speaker is Kay McCaughey, who's a sister of Sam Marshall, who was shot dead by a British death squad in March 1990. My brother Sam Marshall was murdered on Wednesday, 7th of March 1990. 22 years on from that tragic event, my family are still awaiting the full truth to be told. We know that the British state lied about Sam's murder. We know that a cover-up of state involvement began immediately after the shooting. We know that Sam and his two friends were subject of an intense British military operation on the night of the murder. 9 undercover British soldiers were involved, using 6 unmarked cars. The operation was initiated by Special Branch. We are convinced that members of British state forces, including British military intelligence and the Special Branch, were directly involved in the planning and commission of his murder. Responsibility for Sam's murder rests with those who armed, directed and controlled the killers. The blame rests with the policy makers in the NIO, the politicians in Whitehall and Downing Street, the Special Branch, MI5 and British military intelligence. We should not have to remind ourselves time and time again. The British state and its forces organised and directed death squads. We have already been fighting for truth for the past 22 years. We are prepared to fight for another 22 years if necessary. We are also conscious that there are many other families in the same position as our own. Families here today who are still suffering from the pain and grief of their loss, and who still have not known truth or justice during the long years since the unexplained deaths of their relatives. Truth and justice is all that many other families in the same position as our family are asking for. The full truth of why many other families lost their loved ones is the very least that relatives and survivors are entitled to. Unless the British Queen is going to announce next week that she will instruct her government and her forces to open up their secret files and set the truth free, then I and my family see nothing to celebrate. Thank you. I would now call on Joanne Downs, whose brother was murdered by the RUC in 1984, to speak.
My brother was John Downs. 28 years ago in August 1984, my brother was killed as he attended an anti-internment march, a rally just like this one today. He was there to protest against British injustice in Ireland. John died after he was struck in the chest by a plastic bullet fired at point-blank range by a member of Britain's police in Ireland, in full view of the world's media, who reported it as a police riot. My brother John had so much to live for. He was happily married to Brenda, and they both had a beautiful daughter, Claire. That British Army British plastic bullet robbed Brenda, Claire, all our family of a happy future. Brenda's not able to be here today. The reason for that is very simple. Brenda has travelled to be with Claire to discuss with her the contents of a letter Brenda received a few days ago from the British government. That letter told Brenda that as far as the British state is concerned, John's death is closed. In other words, there will be no justice for John, for Brenda, for Claire, for my family. Plastic bullets are still being used in the 6 counties. Several hundred were fired last year. We have campaigned long and hard for them to be banned. There is talk that these weapons will soon be deployed on the streets of England against black and Islamic communities. Our response is that their use was wrong in Ireland, and their use will equally be wrong on the streets of Tottenham, Burnley and Birmingham. As I stand here today, I think of the 16 other families whose loved ones were murdered and maimed by plastic and rubber bullets fired by British police and British Army in the 6 counties. Families like those of Julie Livingstone and Caroline Kelly. These were wee girls, these were children. Like my family, none of those families have ever received justice from the British state. Perhaps the real harsh truth is that we will never receive justice while Britain remains in our country. And that is why I'm standing here today. Thank you. Thanks, Joanne.
Our final speaker today is Angela McKerney. Several members of the McKerney family died at the hand of British state forces and their surrogates.
According to recently discovered documents, the British government decided in 1972, that's 40 years ago, that in order to crush the struggle for freedom and democracy in Ireland, the British Army should not be inhibited in its campaign by the threat of court proceedings and should therefore be suitably indemnified. This damning indictment of Britain's behaviour in Ireland is hardly a surprise to us, but it illustrates just how immoral was the role of Her Majesty's armed forces in this country. It has ever been so, and was very much the case when the British shot to death my brother Porrick and his comrades in Legal 25 years ago this year. This monarchy has seen fit to honour her armed forces for their destruction, demeanour and deprivation decreed here in 6 of Ulster's counties. In my life and in the life of most of here present. As a Republican, I find the concept of monarch effacement the basis that an unelected head of state can control as a mere accident of their birth totally and utterly unacceptable. Meeting the British monarchy in the 6 counties acknowledges that they have the right to exercise their sovereignty in this part of Ireland. It is indeed very, very regrettable that Martin has taken this decision. I have many questions about the British Army behaviour, but today I'll ask only one. Why should we welcome to Ireland the person who is designated as the head of Britain's armed forces? Gormila Mayoga.
Angela. Many hundreds of people, men, women and children, were murdered by the official and the unofficial forces of the British state. The experiences you heard today are mirrored by the experiences of many in this crowd and are mirrored again in every part of the occupied 6 counties. We should never forget that British state violence also extended into the 26 counties and left behind a similar trail of death and heartache. In memory of all Britain's victims in Ireland and around the world, I would ask you all to now observe a minute's silence.